1 in 4 women in the UK have seen one or more forms of violence in their life.
Gona Saed, current CEO of the Maia Centre, a North London-based women's mental health charity. Gona arrived in the UK at age of 29 as a young refugee mother fleeing Iraqi Kurdistan in the face of violent misogyny and political repression. What do you think that taught you?
You are actually a migrant woman who left so much behind, and then you deal with those traumas that happened at that time, but you didn't even have a minute to think about them.
Your mother was a child bride. Could you tell us a bit more about that?
It happens on a huge scale, actually. Part of my work was to report on violence against women and girls, especially cases of honor killing. Very, very often she gets murdered by close family members, the same people who are supposed to love her. It takes a woman between 17 to 36 times of violence incidents before she decides to come out. But leaving that environment is the first step towards making anything better. Anything.
There are women fleeing their homes all over the world. What would be your advice to those women if they are listening to us today? Welcome to Do Not Disturb. I'm your host, Simona Devta. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
It's a pleasure. I really like to understand who my guests are. Could you tell me a little bit about yourself and about your early life in Kyrgyzstan?
Oh, my early life, of course, yes, yeah.
Kurdistan.
So, in Kurdistan, yeah. So I am from the city of Suleymania in North Iraq. They also call it South Kurdistan. I grew up in a large family, 6 brothers, 1 sister, my mom and my dad. But then we lived with other people within the same it was a big house, belonged to my grandmother. So my grandmother lived just beside us. It was our big family, and then my uncle's family, who was a big family again with, I think, 6 or 7 children. We all lived in the same place. We had a very big front yard. So that's where I grew up, with many people, lots of social life, but also, like most people in the city, with poverty and with not extreme poverty, but with struggle to, just have the main means for life and stuff. But then I was lucky I got educated, so I was very keen on education when I grew up, and I actually was first in my class for most of the years, and I liked that. But then something happened when I was doing what's equivalent to A-level here, which gets you to university. So I was this clever student every year, getting great grades, and then on that year, which I was supposed to have some exams to get good grade and go to medicine school. So that was the story, that was the narrative, not only with my big, large family, with everyone who knew us, in our neighborhood and everybody. And I was, how old was I? I was 16 years old, yeah. As I was studying for my exams, I had a snakebite on my left leg. And the snake bite put me in hospital for 6 days, and then it took me 2 months to recover.
Oh my God.
And then my exams, I did 4 of them. I had to delay a few, and then my grades came down. So I was never able to go to medicine school. So that's it was a big turn in life. But then, you get those things, you recover from it, you move on. So I went to engineering school, college. Electric engineering college, and so I'm a graduate from there. Believe it or not, I graduated in 1990. So how many years is that? Many years.
A few
many years ago. Yes, yeah. So I've seen several times displacement. So we had to run away. The whole city run away to the mountains and then over the border to Iran, because there was attacks by the oppressive government that we had, the Ba'ath regime. You might have heard of them. So we had, I think 1991 was 1974, I was 4 years old, and then 1991. So I've seen those two, and it was like mass migration from my city over the mountain to Iran. and then settle there for a few months and then come back when it was safe. So the same story that happens now everywhere in the Middle East, unfortunately, like in Syria, in Yemen, in those places. I've lived through them many times.
And what do you think that taught you?
Taught me survival. I think it gave me a lot of those and other experiences. What it gave me is lots of is the survival, the resilience, and also that life is never high or low. It could be, it will move on. So there is this dynamic about life, like you.
This too shall pass,
Exactly.
Yeah.
Oh, thank you. That was the exact word. This too shall pass. Yes.
The good and the bad, it's all temporary.
Yes, such a great life lesson.
You shared some very interesting things with us on the research call. You mentioned that your mother was a child bride. Could you tell us a bit more about that? It's still happening in the world?
It happens on huge scale, actually, in some communities, as far as I am aware. It's going back to those times. And with the mass poverty, the displacement, lack of security, war zones, these are all the main reasons that pushes a community into kind of trying to, whatever the reason, getting children to get married, young girls to get married, whether it's for protection, for providing, like living.
Is that why your mother?
Like my mother lived in a generation, we are talking about like early 1950s, when my mother was like 8, 9 years old. Yeah. So at that time, I would say most girls would get married at 13 or 14. Most of them. So I rarely know women, like my aunties, my great aunties, people that like they didn't get married by 15, they were 15 years old. So that was the norm. However, for my mom, she had a stepmother who wanted to get her to force her into marriage at 9 years old. So she was only 9. Her own mother died of a child. Basically, she had a baby and died from it. Yeah. And my mom was 9, and this stepmother came in. She was very abusive to my mother and her 2 brothers, which they were children too. So they lived in a small town called Halabja. Halabja is very famous for, it was subjected to chemical bombing in the past. So when my mom realized that this stepmother wanted to marry her and her dad wasn't there basically to care for her, somehow in those days, and we are talking early 1950s, she talked to the only driver that would go from Halabja to Suleimania, from that small town to the city, and had a bus, and managed to get into his bus and escape to the city, to her uncle's house. And then she grew up with her cousins in my mom's uncle's house. But then by the time she was 13, she got married. And as I said, most of the women or girls in her age at that time would get married, and it was the norm. So she married my dad at 13. And it gives me shivers when I think always my older brother and my mum have 14 years difference of age. It always kind of shakes me when I think about it. A 13-year-old girl have a child.
And how old was your father at that time?
He was 19.
Okay, at least that.
Still an adult.
Yeah.
At least an adult, but he was 19. And then, yeah.
And how did that shape your view of women?
I came to know about these stories when I was an adult, so I didn't know about them when I was a child. However, I hope I can talk about this freely. So I had a sister-in-law who married my older brother. When she was my older brother's girlfriend, it was 1982, and I was 12 to 13 years old. So through her, I realized that I could read and think and kind of question. And those novels that I talked about, like The Mother and Nina, she gave them to me.
That's so nice.
Yes. And then I grew up, as I said, with, by the time I went to university, I made friends who were left thinking, we were talking about socialism and equality, and then the striving for women's rights and equalities came naturally from thinking about a better and equal society, and then questioning what was happening to women and girls around me. All those kind of shaped my way forward in life. Yeah.
Education can be very eye-opening in that sense, to see what's happening around you and see the way forward. And how did you then decide to flee your home and go to the UK?
Oh, there is a long distance between when I was in university to when I came out. And during that, say, about 10 years or something. So what I did was I was involved in socialist movements in Iraqi Kurdistan. And there I was involved with the working class movement as well as women's movement as well. So I was working voluntarily with both sides while also working to live. And part of my work within one of the within these two movements was to report on violence against women and girls, especially cases of threats or honor killing. And then
What is honor killing? Could you explain that?
I tell you, Oh God, yes. So honor killing, or the so-called honor killing, I would say, is about where a girl or a woman are murdered due to the notion of bringing shame to her family. And then very, very often she get murdered, killed by close family members, the same people who are supposed to love her and care for her. It could be due to, for example, the traditional reasons, justification that are given is adultery, or it could be that she had a boyfriend out of marriage before she get married, or she had sexual relationships. But then in Iraqi Kurdistan, those issues of honor killing have kind of become so intense that we come across many stories of young girls who were killed because she exchanged a letter of love with like a neighbor, with a boy who was in the neighborhood, or maybe she was suspected for having a relationship, or she was suspected for doing something. So it became very, very intense in a way. Obviously there is no justification, no matter what happened. But then what I'm trying to say, I guess, there are so many heartbreaking stories of young girls and women getting killed in Iraqi Kurdistan. And what we were trying at that time is to collect data, is to collect stories, is to find out who's at risk as well. So during those times, we opened, as part of the women movement, we had a shelter. So we opened a shelter for women. And then just before I escape Iraqi Kurdistan, a few months prior to that, there was a woman in a small town that I tried to help actually, because we didn't rescue her at the end, but we tried to help her to escape. It was a very complicated issue. Then there was other things going on the social level. I was due to participate in a debate on TV with a very known religious scholar. And I remember that was in April 1998. One day before the debate take place, 2 of my friends were killed.
Oh no.
Those 2 friends were men, actually. They were comrades. So they were part of the socialist movement. They were leading some really great work and great struggles of people like internally displaced people, working class people. So they both were killed, but I was with them the few days before, because we were preparing for me to go for the debate. Not only me, we were 4 people.
Yeah.
And then waiting to hear from those people who arranged for the debate. Instead, we got the news that those 2 friends, were assassinated actually. And then that was it for me. And I'm talking now about April, around 18th, 19th of April. And then I arrived here in June 1998.
And he sought asylum in the UK?
Yes, I had to, because I arrived at the airport with no documentation, nothing. So I had to seek asylum straight away. And I had my 3-year-old child with me. My oldest son. Yes, because the second one was born here later.
And I mean, unfortunately, it's 2025, but, you know, I have people who work for me at Nojo, my company, but also I've met many people personally. This is happening today. We had Ukrainian women coming here alone with children because their husbands are in the army. You know, we have women doing this today here in London, and you would hope that in this few decades the situation would have changed, but actually it's very worrying, and there are women fleeing their homes all over the world. What would be your advice to those women if they are listening to us today?
Can I be honest? There is an issue with where are people escaping from. I had my work permission after 6 months, and I started working, never stopped until today. People don't get their work permission these days. So it's very, very different what the asylum seeking people's rights from when I came to now. I always say in some places, I could be seen as a lived experience. I could be seen as a lived experience of someone, of a woman who arrives to this country, provide her with the right support, and then she will give you back, because I have worked my way, working, raising my children, learning, developing myself, and then I was able at some point to say, oh, this is really a comfortable life now after a few years. But then if you don't give anything to people, you keep them in detention centers, if you don't let their children go to school, if you don't give them enough means to live by or motivation to go and work, then what do you do? What are you doing to these people? So that's what I meant when you say, my advice would be fight for your right as an asylum seeker. You deserve a home, you deserve education, you deserve safety. So if you are not getting it, kind of put a voice, like have a collective voice, have a voice with other people, get support, so you can actually shout out and say that you have right as an asylum seeker. So that's what I would say for women. I mean, sometimes the situation is much, much worse from when I came for asylum seeking, everyone but women as well, and single women with mothers with children, that would be a disaster. I mean, if they don't let your children go to school,
how can you work?
How can you work? And then you will be worried about your children missing out on education, and what would the future look like for them? And let alone all the loss, all the bereavement, all the things you left behind, including family members, close family members as well.
Was that the most difficult part for you, leaving your family behind?
Absolutely. I left my husband behind. And then beside my husband, who was my immediate family, then I left my mom, my dad, all the siblings, everyone, my friends, my home. Then, actually, I tell you something. At the time when I left, it was difficult, but because I was leaving for my safety, we wanted that to happen. So it was okay. But then it hits you later. So it takes sometimes, you might actually settle somewhere for many, many years. Actually, start to lead a comfortable life. Your struggles kind of ease out. Then now you have a job, you have a home, your children are going to school. You don't have a lot to worry about. You have your status, immigration status. And then it hits you that you are actually a migrant woman who left so much behind. And then you think back And then you deal with those traumas that happened at that time, but you didn't even have a minute to think about them. And that happened to me. And I'm sure now at the Maia Centre, because many of us are migrant women, people who families live abroad, we always share those peer feelings and support to say, look, when you are migrant women, especially first generation, coming out when you are an adult, then it will hit you at some time. Look after yourself, and then, just embrace that this is the traumas that happened at the time you left, but now you are paying back. You are kind of feeling it back.
Yeah, I'm not an asylum seeker. I came to study in the UK. I'm very privileged, but I still went through that transition. I studied, I got work and everything, and then all of a sudden I'm like, wait, where am I?
You
how
are
did
still a
this
migrant
happen?
woman.
Yeah.
That's why I think it comes with the migration. So the asylum seeking is you don't have like automatic right to stay. That's where the problems start. It's more about the problems here.
Yeah.
But when you migrate from somewhere, for whatever reason, you are leaving so much behind. And then the asylum seeking, of course, has the other problem. You can't go back.
Yeah.
Or for a long period of time, at least, you can't go back. And that's very difficult.
You briefly touched on the Maia Centre and finding the community and peer support groups. Can you tell me more about what's happening at the Maia Centre?
Of course, yes. So at the Maia Centre, I started working there August last year. Sorry, August, not last year, 2023. Yeah, so it's now a year and 6 months. The Maia Centre provides holistic mental health support to women and girls in Islington and other North London boroughs. And what we mean by holistic mental health support is that for any women who would refer herself or is referred by other professionals, we would offer between 10 to 24 counselling sessions. That's one-to-one therapy provided by qualified therapists. Then we offer that same person, if they've been kind of identified as needing it, we offer them complementary therapies, which could be Reiki, massage, or reflexology. And then that helps them with their healing journey of mind and body. So up to 6 sessions of that. Then we do have other things like psychoeducational groups and psychoeducation therapy, group therapy. We do have well-being workshops, like we have a project called Women Hub, and the Women Hub is providing different activities, sometimes very joyful, nice, relaxing activities for women who would get together for their well-being and self-care. We have specialist services, like we have an Irish women's service. So that's just dedicated for Irish women or Irish descent. And then we have a Black Women Project, and that's dedicated to providing all these services like the counselling, the psychoeducation and complementary therapies to women of Black heritage. We sometimes, we might have Somali women group, Bengali women group. So we do those because we know women from different cultures and different backgrounds have a different approach and understanding to mental health and to counselling and to healing methods. And sometimes we discover community-based healing methods. For example, some women like to be in a group when they talk about their experiences. Others would like just that isolated therapy space, one-to-one. Or it could be people discuss stuff over food or over eating or over music. So we are trying to provide those specialist groups as well. So it's a wonderful place. It's a little international community. Services are provided in 13 different languages. So these are mainly the community languages that are spoken in our local areas. What else did I? Yes, we do have kind of an intercultural therapy approach, which means when we work with women, we take into account where does she come from. We try to provide therapists of similar heritage or cultural backgrounds, so they have that understanding of how does the socio-economic and political and different environment from her life have impacted on her traumatic experiences as well.
And could you tell me, so you meet these women, 13 languages, different cultural backgrounds, they are in need. What would you say are the biggest mental health societal pressures that you come across in the Maia Centre?
Domestic violence and male violence against women and girls, I have to say.
Here in London.
The reason I say that is 85% up to every year, that data repeats itself, 85% of the women who we provide services to will disclose a form or more of domestic abuse or sexual violence. And that's the biggest trauma. That's the biggest cause of trauma. Of course, domestic abuse, especially, and sexual violence, they don't come as one rigid experience. Unfortunately, for women and girls, they come in a package. They bring poverty, they bring lack of employment, they bring mental health and deterioration of well-being. So a woman who go through the experience of domestic abuse and the constant, whatever form is, whether it's honor-based violence, whether it's via kind of controlling behavior, whether it's emotional or sexual or financial abuse or physical abuse, that person, their journey in front of them is not easy to take. So, for example, I always use the terms, I use these terms for their journey. So a woman, it takes a woman between 17 to, I think it's 36 times of violence incidents before she decides to come out of that situation. Hopefully when she come out, it's not a smiley world for her. And that's where the reality hits. And it's a problem because she might lose her home, because usually women come out of the house to protect her. They will take her away from the place instead of sending the perpetrator away. Yeah. And then sometimes it's her and her children. So mother and children, they have to leave the home. They've been living there for years. They have to leave the local area. Those children have to go out from those schools and go and find somewhere else. So the trauma starts, it doesn't end there. That's why I'm saying biggest thing is domestic abuse, because it comes.
And are these women usually financially independent, or they are also financially dependent on their partners?
Oh, that's definitely, in most cases, again, they are financially dependent. But that financial dependency, I think it might occur more within some minoritized communities, because women are, kind of, they didn't have opportunities for education or for working experience or for kind of building their skills. They've spent time with raising children. They never had those opportunities that will allow them to work and build kind of a career. Experience. So when, unfortunately, that happens a lot.
And what would be your piece of advice for either people who come to the Maia Centre or other women who might be abused in one or another way in their relationship?
It's not easy. I think it's not easy to advise women who are still in a violent relationship. I would say safety first. So get out, leave. And then, as I said, maybe there are other difficulties in life that she will be faced and her children will face. But leaving that environment is the first step towards making anything better. Anything. So, and also thinking about herself first and then her children as well. If you have everything you need, but you still have abuse,
that's not a good life to be.
That's not a good space to be. Get out. Get out. And that would be my advice. Get out, get help, get support. I mean, organizations like the Maia Centre, like many other organizations and services, we are trying to provide a journey for women like that will take her towards safety and then towards recovery, which is the mental health support, the counseling, and then towards rebuilding her life, which means she could actually have, I always imagine this journey for a woman. So safety first, of course, she need to be safe from the abuse.
The Maslow pyramid. Yes.
So that's maybe a safe house or a shelter or a place by herself. The perpetrator being in jail or being kind of given orders to stay away. And then she start recover from those traumatic experiences. But then while recovering, she could also be given provisions to build skills if she hasn't built those, or to go back to work or to get some advice. So that's why we call it wraparound support or holistic support. So it takes so much to take that journey. And I would advise it's better to take that journey and thrive through it.
Some women, they're not abused or they are not financially dependent, you know, they might not be in such dramatic situations, but then some of them just will find themselves in a new place where they no longer connect with their partner, or they find themselves divorced, and it is still a journey of rediscovery. What would you say it takes a woman to be like in a good, you just said it, what's the third phase of the...
So rebuild.
Rebuild.
Yes.
What does it take a woman to be in that phase of life, like no matter where she comes from, you know?
Valuing herself as a whole person. So because depending on somebody else, whether they are your father, your husband, your brother, or your mother, is just going to tie you to somebody else. You will never be fully valued as a person. So I would say independency. Be independent, value yourself as a whole person. Let people support you by all means. Let people give you if they can, if they want, but without putting any conditions on you to take. Because if you take, and I know many, I've come across so many women that they accepted the abuse because they been paid for their living. They accepted the abuse because they were worried about, what would other people say about them. And I think I would say those women, they need to value themselves. You don't need to accept anything from anyone. You can do it yourself.
Believe in yourself.
Everyone can do it, yeah. Yeah.
And would you advise therapy for women?
Absolutely, yes. Yes, I do advise. I would advise. However, we need to be aware therapy doesn't work. Like, say, if you live in fear, if you live under threat, if you are worried every day, if you're going to have a lot of highs and a lot of downs, therapy wouldn't work. So that's why we call it this journey. So you need the safety first. You need to be in a safe space. And then you will see that you need therapy. Why? Because therapy, you will have to agree to it. So it's not something, you need to be ready for it. And you will be ready for therapy once your safety is taken care of. You feel safe.
100%.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then, but it happens that while you are doing therapy, you are also empowered or encouraged. While you are recovering, you are also encouraged to rebuild. So to start a course, for example, to start do something good for yourself, to start talking to people about the business or how to get income or go back to education or just be.
So the secret is to start and to get your foundations right, and then from there, bit by bit, to rebuild your life.
I think that's the secret. And get support, seek help.
Support from centers like the Maia Centre, but I think
from centers like the Maia Centre, there are many wonderful women's organizations out there in London, across England, across all the country. Seek support, seek help. If you are not getting it, voice. If you are not getting help and support, try to get together with a couple of your friends, a couple of your neighbors, women around you, mothers in school. Have a voice. Talk to each other. Raise your voice. Say, we need this, we need that. Because that's how you can get things. Yeah? There are many wonderful organizations, as I said, like the Maia Centre. Although not many of us, we need to address this. We are small charities with very, very small resources. We need support, we need donations, we need help so we can continue supporting women. But as an individual women, will always be there to provide help and support.
That's wonderful.
Yeah.
That's true. I mean, when I went through my divorce, I would not do it without other moms in my school. I think they were a big family support for me. So,
no, absolutely.
but I was very vocal. I was like, I need somebody to take my child. I need an hour to myself, and people would do that. So I think stepping up for yourself, and women will always want to help.
I think it's wonderful to do that. And also it gives you the sense of collective power and collective voice. Like we do have, by the way, at the Maia Centre, we have a project called Social Justice. So what we are trying to do is to bring together some of our former service users or
nice.
Women in the community to voice their concerns about the services that are available, or to maybe talk to the local councillors or, policymakers. So we do have something like that we're working on.
Wonderful.
Thank you.
What changes would you like to see in the society in the future for support for women?
For support for women, well, there are changes needed at many different levels. So at the level of government, I would say allocating enough resources to tackle violence against women and girls. Allocating enough resources to empower women to be equal, to have equal rights, to be treated equally. Allocate enough resources to... It's not about raising awareness anymore. Everybody is aware it should be like that, but not everyone is doing them. I think it's about making sure women are empowered, are supported, their needs are considered, they are listened to in the local areas, services are shaped to their needs as well. At other levels is about, I would say, what I mentioned earlier, on the community level, people will need to take responsibility for collective voice, basically. Don't stay silent. Whether you are 10 women getting together, where you are, don't stay silent. You always need to influence and lobby and voice your concerns. Talk about what you need and find a way to get to your local government and talk to them. And I'm not saying everything is possible, but once you have voice, you are stronger.
It's definitely not possible unless you tried it,
Absolutely. Nobody is going to give it to you. Yes. On a charity level, like women, we call ourselves Women's Sector. There is an organization called Rosa Fund for Women. I don't know if you heard of them. Rosa Fund for Women is they're trying to give out funding to smaller women organizations to empower them and work, to have a voice and do good work with women. So Rosa Fund produced a report, I believe it was last year, so they are promoting the report. It says out of a few billion pounds in this country that are given to charity sector, I think if I'm not wrong, it's around just over 4% goes to the women's sector. 4%. So imagine thinking about charity. What does charity mean? It means that you are supporting people in the country with protected characteristics, like it might be people who are disabled, it might be people who are children, it might be older people, it might be survivors of violence, domestic abuse. So it's a sector where it's about people who need support and help so they can have a quality of life. Yeah?
Yeah.
And just 4% of that goes to the women's sector. And that's a big shame, because there is so much, this is at odds with the national statistics that tells you violence against women and girls is a national problem. It is a national problem. 1 in 4 women.
1 in 4 women.
1 in 4 women in the UK have seen one or more forms of violence in their life.
To be honest, when, I've been asked to donate money for charity, it's usually either cancer or pets. Yeah. So, commercially. So at Nojo, during my other business, during the COVID, we supported charities for domestic abuse, because I know that during COVID times, those numbers were just skyrocketing and there was just not enough support, and then you couldn't take these women out of the house during the COVID, and it was a really, really dark period for women in that environment.
Absolutely. And it still is. Can I tell you something? So when I started at the Maia Centre, I realized that our referral line was closed, so we couldn't get any new. And I asked, why are we closing our doors or referral lines? They said because we had 607 referrals after COVID. So between 2021, 2022, 607 women were referred to our services that we had to start to clear out so we can put them through counseling as much as we can. So we had to close our line for months and months and months. So we are not getting new referrals. So that to me, because imagine this, the Maia Centre has the capacity to provide counseling for about 200 women a year. And imagine if your waiting list is there are 600.
That's 3 years.
That's 3 years of work without getting anyone. And I tell you, every other women organization was the same.
That is devastating.
Yeah.
And my next question to you is, you face these horrible stories every day. Very hard job that you have. There are also very hard news on TV at the moment. A lot of, natural disasters and horrors and so on. How do you then balance your own mental health having this working environment?
At the Maia Centre, because we are a mental health support organization, there is a lot of knowledge and skills goes around in the organization around well-being, self-care, and also we are guided by the BACP, which is British Association for Psychotherapy. Correct me if I'm wrong, but
I don't know. But yes, you have guidelines.
Yes, put it that way. So we are guided by their guidance. So we have to safeguard everybody's well-being. So everyone who works at the Maia Centre, you hear and witness other women's stories every day, especially the therapists. They do have regular supervision. We have a beautiful space, like it's not as beautiful as here, but it's a beautiful space where the therapists could come out, chill around the table, have a tea, have some conversation. So there's a lot of peer support going on. So people supporting each other, even informally, just through conversations. But for me, maybe I could be the worst in terms of well-being and self-care, basically, because I just go on with doing and doing and doing. But I do have some, I do reflective practice sometimes. So when I sit with somebody who's independent, I just try to reflect on what I was doing and how I could do better. I try to I do have some well-being, I call it well-being half a day, a month, that I should be doing something nice. And I'm thinking about, I really like to learn about creative writing. So I actually had I had prepared a 2-line story for you to say.
Yes.
Yeah, I can tell you later. So I do think about, but then for temporary self-care, I think mindless movies could work.
Mindless movies, yes.
Yeah. The sofa and some ice cream and I don't know.
Treating yourself.
Things. Yeah. Could work. Yeah.
Winding off. Yeah.
Exactly.
If someone is to take away one thing from the discussion today, what should it be? One message for the women. One message
to take away for you is the
I took
ask
that
for
me.
Yeah. It's not easy, but it works and is good. For me, it would be the voice. So if you can't get what you need and you know what you need, try to raise your voice. Don't stay silent.
Great. Mm-hmm. Thank you so much for coming today.
Oh, we finished?
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
It was a great pleasure.
Thank you.
To have you on. Yeah. I wish you all the best with your amazing work.
Thank you very much.
Yes.
Thank you.
We'll promote all the links and hopefully it will benefit more women.